welcome. You're watching FII. I'm Sonal Mehrotra Kapoor. Now, we've done an entire series for your much talked about series, something that you demanded out of us, which is on data privacy and data security. Now, yesterday we looked at changes that you can make on your phone settings to ensure that your data is not freely being taken away by these apps and is vulnerable on Wi-Fi routers, even on your browser settings. A lot of you wrote back to say, what happens to your data once it is leaked online, say, or once it's accessed by the dark web? So today on the program, we try to look into those details. What happens to this data? Is that a route to online frauds as well and financial frauds that are taking place? So we'll discuss that over the program, and we've picked out two examples for you. If you thought only apps and private browsers and private websites are the ones which are voluntarily or involuntarily leaking your data, think again. Even government websites, for example, a heavily used website called IRCTC, where all you and I have been booking our railway tickets, that got leaked. Not once but twice, we are told, according to reports, where at least data of 1 million people, here again, data of 1 million people was accessed and just sold out on the dark web. It included your date of birth, your details, name, email ID, everything. So that's the government leak that happened on IRCTC. At the same time, we're looking at an extremely popular matrimonial website as well, Bharat Matrimony, which also happened to have a data breach. They ended up giving out all the personal details of their clients as well, something that led to even their stocks dipping at the stock exchange. So we look at both these cases. In fact, it's not just these two, there are several others which perhaps you don't even know about. So we look into them, but first up, let's go across to Rubina, who explains to you systematically how this leak happens and what becomes of that data. Rubina.
Sonal, private data of over 1 million IRCTC customers is now available for download on the darkness. Internet security research firms like Sybil and CloudSec have downloaded and confirmed that the data is valid and includes private information like mobile numbers, date of birth, email, gender, name, marital status and more. But how does a data leak occur? A data leak or breach can occur in many different ways, but the most common method is by hacking into an unsecure server. Hackers look for unsecure codes of the website and use techniques like SQL injection, where the malicious code is added to a database. The malicious code can then be used to dump the database, which stores all the information to a local file. In case this database is not encrypted, it is virtual to extract all personal information from it. Other methods include brute force attacks. This method uses software tools to guess and gain access to administrator passwords. Now, once the hacker is in, they can have access to the entire website and user data. Now, yet another surprising way data breaches occur are simply through phishing or social engineering. A hacker may create a web page that looks exactly like one he or she is trying to hack into. Using social engineering tricks, the hacker may then trick a user into logging in and gaining access to admin passwords. But what does this mean for you? Now, having access to all your data means that you are at risk of identity theft. Having access to mobile and email data also puts users at a risk of increased phishing attacks, where a targeted user might be tricked into placing their login credentials into a fake site like for a bank. If you are wondering what you can do to protect yourself, there are a few basic rules to follow. You should never have the same password across websites. Now, password managers can help you create and store strong, unique passwords. Additionally, enable two-factor authentication for critical services like banking. And finally, never share your OTP with any third party. Sonal.
All right, they seem like very clear instructions, but perhaps a lot of us forget to actually comply by it, considering how many platforms we have to log in on these days. But important information to remember. Thanks, Rubina, for that. Well, we talked about the IRCTC information, and we actually tried to get a word from their spokesperson. We basically wanted to understand from them, how will they ensure that this data breach does not occur again? How have they taken any action post the breach also happened? Look what their response was. They refused to come on camera, but they sent us a written statement. I'm going to read that out for you. IRCTC says that there has been no leakage of data of our users at all. They're in denial that this even happened. They go on to say that data seems to be of very general nature. So first they say it hasn't happened, but even if it has happened, it's very general in nature, so it is of no harm essentially. They're saying this data, which if leaked, is available on all e-commerce websites as well. So what's the big deal? They also go on to say data is very well protected and is in encrypted form. So that's the response of IRCTC, where 1 billion, like we said, information of 1 billion people has been sold out to the dark web. In fact, it's now available for free download as well. On that note, let me bring in our experts. We've got for you on much demand Jitin Jain, Amit Dubey, Pawan Duggal, all regulars with us at FYI now. Good morning. I hope you guys are doing well. Jitin, I'll begin by asking you. I mean, not surprising. In fact, a little sort of it's in really bad taste, and perhaps goes on to show how IRCTC perhaps is not keeping up to pace at all. They refuse to even accept at this point that there has been a data breach.
Sonam, if we have to talk about IRCTC, I had a look at the data when yesterday we discussed about the news. I think IRCTC is partially right, and on the second front, they are being, in denial mode, and they are being stupid. So they are being partially right on the front that data which is being available on the dark web now is not a new breach. I think it happened almost 5 years ago. I think somebody is reselling that data on dark web now, and it happens that you sell this data, then you con more people by selling it as a new data on different platforms. So this happened, I think, 5 years ago.
One second, you're saying this breach happened 5 years ago and it is still available. Yes. Nothing has been done.
No, so you know how it works. I mean, like Zomato got hacked, these companies like matrimonial sites get hacked. Once they get hacked, this data keeps selling forever and ever. People are selling it even for 1 lakh rupees, 2 lakh rupees. Somebody would sell for 10 lakh. So you couldn't buy mobile numbers of a state, just the mobile number. That is how these marketing companies work. So tell you that we will send 5 lakh SMSs for you. So there is some place from where they're obtaining data, right? So, all these scamsters who con you with OTP frauds, they know your date of birth, your details and they collect all this information from such data breaches. So, IRCTC data was breached 5 years ago. This is not a new breach. So on that point, IRCTC is partially right. On the second point, when they say that this data is not critical or, it is okay to have it in public, I think that is, not correct. It is a personally identifiable information. Data has things like date of birth, at times PAN numbers, on which seat you traveled, on what destination to travel, who was your co-passenger, your username. I think that they should have admitted that it happened.
Your one of your ID cards in case you want to book online. So that's gone out as well.
So those details are not gone out. I mean, those details are not gone out. What had gone out basically the passenger details when you fill while booking a ticket. Now, what IRCTC in my opinion should have done, they should have admitted that, we are taking all the measures to further secure data, and if anything has gone out, we'll investigate. I think for long, Indian government agencies have learned to live in denial mode. That denial is the best defense of any data breach. I think we also as a society must understand that nothing is 100% secure. Someday something can go wrong. So instead of, if we start not accusing them and targeting them, I think these people will learn the culture of accepting the mistakes, admitting the breaches and taking care of it. Now they're scared that if they admit, somebody would be fired. If a private company discloses data breach, their stocks go down, like you mentioned in the opening remarks. And then, shareholders might create a panic, investors might go out. So it is a situation we need to improve, where we need to create a culture among corporates and government institutions to admit data breaches and take precautionary actions.
Right. I mean, my worry at this point is when it comes to private companies, websites and apps, they have, if they are listed, they at least have responsibility and they owe it to their shareholders to tell them what happened. When it comes to IRCTC, they can just stay in denial and this can continue to happen. Amit Duggal, your opening comments? Amit Dubey, sorry.
Oh, so thank you, Sonal. So, I would little disagree over here, Sonal, because even the private companies, they are also in denial mode most of the time. If you take the example of recent Zoom car attack, their entire data was available on dark web, and their CEO, the first response from their CEO was like, "There's nothing such happened, and there's no data leak." but day after tomorrow, and then probably we realize like they have accepted it and then they were fixing it. Similarly, if you know this recent Cognizant attack by Mage ransomware, they were also in denial mode for a few days and then they accepted it. And eventually they lost almost $100 million. They accepted that there was a loss and they were penalized. So all these things are actually used as a defense mechanism because they don't want to take through this data privacy regulations and law and then penalize on that. So that's why they want to first deny this and then take the corrective action so that this can be minimized.
Let me take it a little forward. And let me come to the point which a lot of viewers have also raised. They've been tweeting me and telling me that what's the harm? They're saying exactly what IRCTC is saying as well. Well, if my personal data is there on the dark web, what happens to that data? Explain that to our viewers.
See, first of all, you should understand that why this data is categorized or classified in PII data or sensitive data or sensitive classified data, because in our data privacy bill also, which is in discussion, we have classified in different form. Because when it is personally identifiable information, if I have your email ID and mobile number, and suppose I have another database leak where your some other information with that email ID is linked, I will eventually be getting all of information linked together. So some information from IRCT, some information from Google because it is linked with your email ID, or some information from other data sources, like if you know recently like Haldiram got a ransomware attack. So all these things, whatever is happening around us, there are multiple data leaks.
And who's buying this data?
So there are players, there are profilers, there are governments, there are state-sponsored agents. They all buy this data and they also sell this data to other countries wherever it is required. And they also sell it to marketing companies. They also sell it to criminals, like whoever is during election. I think most of these marketing companies, they will go for this data. They need this emails, they need these mobile phones, and they want to profile these people. So depending on the requirements, there are many players who are going to use this information and to create their marketing strategies accordingly, to manipulate people's mindset, to push them some content which can eventually trigger them to buy something or trigger them to decide something. So their decision-making powers can be influenced through this data, for which they need to know more and more about your personalized information. Yeah.
Right. So in fact, we've been talking about IRCTC, but let me bring in Bharat Matrimony at this point. You know, Bharat Matrimony, and we tried to reach out to them, couldn't really get a response, but they did give a quote to Economic Times, and I'm just going to read that out. At this point, they are saying that we are aware of security issue that has been reported to us recently. As per our investigation, there has been no breach of our current active database of customers. What has been reported belongs to an old database and no sensitive information has been compromised. No sensitive information compromised is what Bharat Matrimony is saying. Also adding that as we continue to follow the highest order of industry encryption of our customers, security is of high priority, focus area, etc. They say we'll confirm 100% and we are committed to data privacy as well. Now what happened, and it's important to see the implication of this, a day after this report was published, which was not very long ago, it was just about last week, their shares closed at almost 4% down. They're listed at both BSE and NSE, remember, and that led to a huge amount of loss and their sentiments really getting lost at the stock market. So this is a huge problem. When it comes to Bharat Matrimony, things like names, phone numbers, things like your user IDs, and according to several reports, and this is Cybel which is saying this, they are saying that all this data from Bharat Matrimony, which was worth 1.7 GB, was up for sale at some $500 of cryptocurrency. And that, of course, is something that ET has picked up. We haven't been able to verify it, but that's how it's working. Jitin Jain, make sense of this for our viewers who are still wondering, like I said at this point, that what happens to this data? Why are you and I talking about it repeatedly these days, about how crucial this is to safeguard your personal details?
Sonam, it works in different ways. Suppose if you are a political party and from somehow you are able to gather a list of 50 lakh mobile numbers in a city. Now, instead of randomly messaging, you don't know who stays where and which constituency they are. So if you were to link it with another database where mobile numbers along with email addresses and physical address is available, you can profile them based on the constituency. You can send different messages to different candidates. You can further send them emails. You can use emails to then figure out their social media profile and run a selective political propaganda like Cambridge Analytica was offering. Now, when it comes to frauds, suppose if your credit card details got leaked on Zoom or some other site which got hacked, if somebody was to call you, madam, I have a credit card number, I'm calling from bank, and I need this, you may not believe him. But if he was to tell you, madam, are you calling from this address and this is your date of birth and you have account in this bank and I'm calling from bank and your, there's a suspicious transaction in your account.
Authenticity.
So establishing trust. So the more data you have, more trust you are able to establish and more people you are able to con and scam. Now this is the way it works. Third, now you also have to understand there are hostile intelligence agencies who also look for such databases. So if you were to profile that who's staying in a defense area, who's staying, and suppose if the father details are available, the parent details are available, then you can figure out who's the son of which politician and all those stuff. So there are a lot many players in the market and they use that data according to different purposes, and sometimes we can't even imagine how this data can be used. And at times such data are available even in 15,000 rupees. I mean, you can buy the mobile number and addresses or email addresses of a state in 10,000 rupees. So, that is what is most worrying, that the affordability and reach and availability, which is so easy. And then you have all the scamsters running fake KYC SIM cards and, calling people on OTP scams.
And don't think it takes some rocket science or some expert to actually do this. We've had instances, and now it's been documented as well, of how these phishing scams are set up in villages of Bihar, where a bunch of boys get access to your personal data and they're running online frauds worth crores, and how it's a massive racket that the government is trying to nail.
Problem is, Sonal, when you come to know that your data has been breached, what do? You can't change your email ID every time. You can't change your mobile number. I mean, earlier the mobile number used to change in 4-5 operators. Now you've got mobile number portability. Number remains, for years and decades. So you can't even actually do anything once the data is breached. So I think the new, data privacy law.
Are you saying you can do nothing? Once it's there, there is no way you can remove your digital footprint.
Yes, yeah. So now in the new data privacy law which is coming in, now there is a provision of penalty. So suppose if Bharat Matrimony like kind of website whose data gets leaked, whether it was a breach or an intentional leakage of data for a third-party marketing company, or it was an insider job where the data resulted by a theft, these companies will be held accountable and they will be penalized up to, I think, 5% of their turnover.
I actually want to bring in Pawan Duggal on that note. On the legality of it all, I want to bring in Pawan Duggal. Thanks for joining us. Just want to understand, in a case like this, exactly what was on my mind that Jitin has just read it now. In a breach like this, who is to be held accountable? Will Bharat Matrimony be held accountable? Will the government try to find out who these hackers are? Or will the third party who actually purchased this have some accountability?
As of now, the legal proposition is very clear. It will be this concerned company who has been breached. That will be the first port of accountability. Because a company like Bharat Matrimony becomes an intermediary under Section 2 of the Information Technology Act. Under Section 79 of the IT Act, such a company is required to exercise due diligence. Under the IT Rules 2011, they are required to put in reasonable security practices and procedures. And if they don't do that, they are deemed to be non-compliant with the provisions of law and hence expose themselves to legal liability. Further, here is a case where the factum of the breach has come up for reporting from other sources, and they are only merely going ahead and responding to the same. I think when they have said that this is not the current data, but the old data, it's an implicit admission of the fact that the cyber security breach took place. Now, once that's taken place, it was the bounden responsibility of this company as a listed company to report this matter to the Indian Nodal Agency on Cyber Security, being the Computer Emergency Response Team of India. But if it's not done that could expose it to legal consequences, both criminal and civil. Apart from that, it can also be sued for unlimited damages.
Who will hold IRCTC responsible
will definitely
for the
also
leak?
be responsible. Why not?
They are in denial still.
responsible
It happened
to show
5 years ago and they're still in denial.
And that's the problem. You have not been able to enforce the law. The law says go hammer and tongs against them. But most of the people are ignorant about the law. They don't want to follow the remedies that are given under the law. And that's the reason why these entities continue to be in a state of denial.
Well, I really hope the Railways Minister is listening in to this, and we'll make sure to hand over a copy of this discussion as well to make him aware of what exactly is happening, if it has skipped his mind so far at least. But Pavan Duggal, you were saying something about damages when I interrupted. Please go ahead on that.
So I think the Indian Information Technology Act is very clear. If you are a company that's handling with sensitive personal data of individuals, and as a result of your negligence, a breach takes place, and as a result of the said cybersecurity breach, somebody is affected, then the affected party can actually sue you for unlimited damages by way of compensation under Section 43 capital A of the Information Technology Act 2000. For normal kinds of data, which is not sensitive personal data, you can be sued for up to 5 crore rupees per contravention.
Has it happened in the country so far where damages have been paid?
Well, we have had various cases which have been filed, but unfortunately, not much damages have been awarded. In fact, the law of torts is very poorly developed, and we have not been able to give substantive enabling support to this entire cause of damages. That's why the Chalta Hai approach, the Indian Jugaad School of Management, still prevails supreme. Everybody believes that they can do Jugaad, including working around the law. And I think it's here that the deterrence in the law needs to be effectively gone ahead and enforced and implemented.
Right. Well, I rest my case over there into the fact that we've not had any major compensation being paid in the country, and thus there's no deterrence. There is no deterrence. Once we've done a debate earlier of how weak and there are lapses and loopholes in the law itself, and then in the current form also. Look at the way it is being practiced. We'll have to leave it there, gentlemen. Thank you so much for educating us one more time, as we're all getting to learn and brace ourselves in keeping in the times of cyber leakages, which is happening every second day or minute or second, if I can say so. That's a wrap on today's FYI. We'll see you again next week, 11:30. Thanks for watching.